They called me a disappointment. Said I was wasting my life in a garage. My own sister offered me her used clothes. Said I'd look more employable. But tonight, I own the building her husband's firm rents from. And I'm not here for dinner. I'm here to take back everything they thought I'd never earn. They always liked to pretend it was just dinner, just a casual get-together once a year with the family. But it was never just dinner, it was judgment night, served medium rare with a side of generational pride. And this year, I came prepared. The long mahogany table stretched like a runway beneath blinding crystal chandeliers. Every place setting was so precise, it could have been a military operation. Wine glasses sparkled beside the kind of china no one ever actually ate off of. Fresh orchids had been flown in from Singapore the night before. Even the silence had weight to it. I stepped into the room, heels muted against imported Italian marble. The air smelled like old money and something sharper. Expectation, maybe, or control. This house, their house, had always made me feel small. That was the point. But tonight I was here for the last time, at least like this. I wore a simple black blazer, understated on purpose, not flashy, not threatening, just quiet. But underneath, resting against my wrist beneath the fabric, was a gift to myself, a custom Geneva-made timepiece, one they'd never seen, one they would never expect. 6 months of silence, 6 months of strategic invisibility, of playing the struggling daughter just right. And now the final scene was set. "Oh, she's here," came the voice from across the room, my sister Vanessa. Always the first to smile, always the first to cut. She stood near the fireplace in a deep emerald designer dress, swirling her wine like it held secrets only she could understand. "Emily," she said, with a soft sigh that somehow sounded disappointed. "Still taking the bus, I see." I smiled gently, walking toward the far end of the table, my usual seat, the one closest to the help and farthest from the power. "Public transportation is remarkably efficient," I replied. "You should try it sometime." "Keeps you grounded." Vanessa blinked, just once. I could feel her watching me like she always did. Not for who I was, but for who I wasn't. At the table, Dad was already seated, swirling his Bordeaux like it was some kind of ritual. Mom adjusted her pearl necklace, not looking up as I sat. That's when I'll introduce myself properly. Emily Wren, 32 years old, daughter of Charles and Meredith Wren, baby of the family, Harvard dropout, supposed tech failure, at least, that's the version they preferred. The version they nurtured, like a shared family myth. The one they'd whispered to neighbors, to friends at the country club. "Emily's still figuring things out," they'd say. "She's doing something with computers." I was the one who didn't marry a lawyer, the one who didn't join the family firm, the one who didn't get invited to speak at a cousin Brian's wedding. They had me pegged, and that's exactly how I wanted it. Because tonight, the truth doesn't knock. It enters quietly, takes its seat, sips its wine, and waits. And tonight, Truth was wearing a $6,000 watch under a $90 blazer. Vanessa returned to her seat across from me, taking a slow sip of wine with the smug satisfaction of someone who'd never been challenged. She glanced at her husband, Bryce, who was busy checking stock alerts on his phone like he ran the markets. Spoiler, he didn't, but try telling my parents that. "Darling," Mom began, the edge of her voice too soft to be sincere. She reached for her wine but didn't take a sip. Instead, she looked at me the way someone might examine a stray cat on their porch. "We've been worried about you." Dad nodded slowly, as if agreeing took effort. "You're 32 now, Emmy. It might be time to realign expectations." I kept my eyes on my plate, tracing the gold rim of the charger with one finger. It was always like this. No matter how I walked in, they only ever saw what they expected: the failure, the oddball, the unfinished daughter. "Your sister's doing exceptionally well," Mom continued. "Bryce just made junior partner. We're so proud. Vanessa always had a strong sense of direction." Vanessa tilted her head like she was doing me a favor just by being there. "And you? How's that little, what is it again? A website?" Dad jumped in without looking up from his soup. "The app thing, right? You still working on that? From your apartment?" "It's actually a software company," I said quietly, checking my phone as another notification lit up the screen. "Third one tonight. Investor update." I flipped it over. Vanessa laughed, soft and sharp. "A software company," she repeated as if tasting the words. "Is that what we're calling it now? Last I heard, you were coding out of a garage like it was 2004. I took a sip of wine. The Bordeaux was smooth, earthy, aged just like Dad liked it. Victory always tasted better when it was disguised as silence. "We just want you to be realistic," Mom said, folding her napkin and placing it delicately in her lap. "There's no shame in accepting help. Your father knows people, real companies, Emily, with offices, benefits, paychecks, another buzz, stock jump, 3.2% in after hours." Vanessa leaned in slightly, her voice syrupy. "Speaking of benefits, are you still using those food stamps we helped you apply for last Christmas?" Dad nearly choked on his wine. "Vanessa," he muttered, not in rebuke, but in appearance, "we don't talk about that at dinner." "Why not?" she said, setting her glass down. "Emily's not embarrassed, are you, sis?" "It's just temporary, right? Until your little tech startup takes off." She even did the air quotes, slow, deliberate. I almost applauded her form. "I'm managing," I said, keeping my tone neutral. I looked at my watch. 10 minutes. Mom exhaled through her nose, like she'd just survived something difficult. "We've arranged an interview for you," she said suddenly, her voice perking up like this was good news. "Barbara from the country club. Her son's investment firm is hiring. Administrative assistant. Entry level, but it's a foot in the door." "That's thoughtful," I replied, keeping my smile controlled. "But I'm quite busy with my current work." Vanessa scoffed. "Busy? Doing what? Playing with your computer in that shoebox apartment?" Dad jumped in again, eager to compare. "You know the Hendersons? Their daughter just got promoted to regional manager, 30 years old, company car, corner office." I nodded, pretending to care. "That's impressive," I said. My phone lit up again. Forbes had just published the digital edition. My face on the cover, and suddenly, 10 minutes felt like a lifetime. I let the conversation swirl around me like background noise. Corner offices, investment portfolios, promotions I was supposed to envy. It was remarkable how much pride they took in things they had nothing to do with. Bryce was now talking about real estate. Vanessa was nodding like she understood. My mother glanced between the two of them with maternal awe, like she'd birthed royalty and a miracle. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again. Third notification in under a minute. I tilted the screen slightly, just enough for my eyes only. Forbes cover approved? live in 5 minutes. Below it, the subheading. Inside NovaTech's silent takeover of the AI market. Meet the billionaire no one saw coming. Still calm, still invisible. Across the table, Vanessa draped her arm across the back of her chair, glancing around like she owned the room. "It must be hard," she said, locking eyes with me, "watching everyone move forward while you experiment." I nodded slowly, taking a small bite of the mushroom bisque. It was excellent, subtle, expensive, unnecessary, just like everything else in this house. "The thing is," Vanessa continued, "you're smart, Emily. You've always been smart. You just never had direction. Remember that idea you had in college? What was it? Something about predictive analytics?" Mom perked up. "Oh yes, that was clever. You should revisit it. Maybe someone with experience could help make it, real." My fingers tapped against the side of my wine glass. "That idea evolved," I said simply. Dad chuckled into his napkin. "Into what, exactly?" Another buzz. NovaTech shares up 4.1%. Digital cover is live. 2 more alerts followed. One from CNBC, one from Bloomberg. The silence before a market earthquake. Before I could respond, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "Sir," said James, the butler, "your magazine has arrived. The early edition, as requested." Dad frowned. "Leave it on the console." "I believe you'll want to see this immediately," James replied, his voice a little tighter than usual. I turned slightly in my chair. "Here it comes." Dad sighed with irritation and reached for the glossy publication. He glanced at the cover and froze. His hand slipped. The wine glass he'd been holding shattered against the table edge, red liquid spreading across, the white linen like blood across snow. Mom gasped. Vanessa sat upright. "Dad!" His eyes were still locked on the cover, not the headline, not the article. The photo, it was me. Standing in the corner office of a skyscraper, black tailored suit, quiet strength, no apologies. The headline above read, "The Ghost CEO, NovaTech's Emily Wren breaks silence." For a moment, no one moved. The room had gone completely still. Vanessa craned her neck. "What is it? What's going on?" Mom reached for the magazine with trembling hands. Her eyes moved slowly, lips parting with each line she read aloud. "Emily Wren, 32, founder and CEO of NovaTech Industries, secretive AI empire, $4.7 billion valuation, announced today." She stopped, blinking rapidly. Bryce leaned forward. "Wait. You're Emily Wren?" I met his eyes without flinching. "I always have been." The silence was thick enough to choke on. Mom just sat there, holding the magazine like it might bite her. The hand that clutched her pearls had gone stiff, knuckles white. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Vanessa finally snatched the magazine from her. She scanned the headline, then the photo. Then she froze. It was the first time in her entire life I'd seen her speechless. She looked up at me slowly. "This is a joke." I didn't respond. "It's a PR stunt," she said, voice rising now. This has to be fake, right?" She turned to Bryce. "It's fake." Bryce stared at me like he'd never seen me before. "NovaTech," he said under his breath. "Wait. You're NovaTech." I nodded. Founder, CEO, majority shareholder. Dad was still motionless, staring at the shattered glass, wine pooling near his elbow, like he couldn't decide whether to speak or throw up. "You told us you were freelancing," Mom said suddenly, voice shaking. "Working on on a hobby." "No," I said calmly. "You told yourselves that. I never corrected you." Another buzz from my phone. My assistant's message flashed across the screen. "Board is ready." A PAC expansion confirmed. "Do you want to break the news or should we?" I slid my chair back quietly and stood, adjusted the blazer, pulled back the cuff of my sleeve. The watch caught the light, sleek, rare, easily more than what Vanessa paid for her luxury SUV. Dad noticed it. His eyes narrowed. "I have a board meeting in 10 minutes, I said. "We're finalizing the Asian market rollout." I turned to Vanessa. "And about those food stamps, I donated $10 million last quarter to the state's food security program. They're naming the new distribution center after our family." She blinked, stunned. "Oh, and Bryce," I added, "you might want to start looking for new office space. Your firm rents 3 floors in a building I now own." His mouth fell open. "That's not—" "I acquired the holding company this morning," I said flatly, through a shell. "It'll be in the business section by noon." Matthews reappeared with my coat, holding it up respectfully. "Your helicopter is ready on the back lawn, Miss Wren," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Congratulations on the Forbes cover. The timing was impeccable." I slipped the coat over my shoulders. Mom still hadn't moved. Dad looked like someone had carved out his spine. Vanessa just kept flipping through the magazine, like she was hoping the ending would change. "You lied to us," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "You never asked. You assumed. That's different." I paused, letting the weight of it sink in. "I'll have my office send over the full investment portfolio," I added. "We should discuss what role, if any, you'd like to play in the legacy trust." That got Dad's attention. His head snapped up. "What trust?" But I was already halfway to the door. "I named it after Grandpa Wren," I said, glancing over my shoulder. "The one who believed in me." The room remained frozen, a portrait of disbelief. All that wealth, all that pride, all that posturing, undone in under 5 minutes. And I wasn't done yet. Just before stepping into the hallway, I turned back once more. "Oh, and Vanessa, about that administrative assistant position you lined up for me." She looked up quickly, eyes wide. "We are hiring," I said with a polite smile. "Entry-level salaries start at 6 figures. Feel free to apply." Then I walked out. The hallway outside the dining room was quiet, dimly lit by antique sconces lining the walls. But behind me the storm had finally cracked open. I could hear them, not words, just fragmented noises, chairs scraping, uneven breathing, the soft rustle of pages as they flipped through that magazine, trying to make sense of it all. I didn't stop. Matthews escorted me through the marble corridor with the same measured precision he'd always had. But now, there was something different in his posture. A pride he no longer had to hide. "I take it the timing met your expectations, Miss Wren?" he asked softly. I smiled. "Perfect, as always." At the back entrance, the glass doors opened automatically. Wind rushed in from the helipad. The rhythmic chop of the blades pulsed through the night air. Matthews held the door. And then, just before I stepped out, his voice lowered. "Your family," he said gently. "They look undone." I paused, just for a second, not out of guilt, never guilt, but reflection. "I gave them 6 months," I said. "All they had to do was listen." The helicopter crew saluted. I climbed in, settled into the leather seat, headset already waiting. As we lifted off, I turned slightly, just enough to see the glow of the dining room through the windows. 4 figures. Still seated, still silent, still stuck in the version of me they'd created. I took out my phone. Notifications were exploding. Media outlets, investor calls, a direct message from someone at Bloomberg. One caught my eye, a headline from Reuters. NovaTech shocks. Global market, secret billionaire, revealed as Emily Wren, 32, former failure daughter, turns Silicon Phantom. I tapped the notification and took a quick screenshot. It would make a good memory. "Where to, Miss Wren?" the pilot asked through the headset. "Downtown," I said. "Thompson Tower, boardroom." "Yes, ma'am." As the helicopter turned toward the skyline, the house behind me disappeared into the night. I left them there, still trying to reconcile the Emily they thought they knew with the one who now owned the building their pension was invested in. And for the first time in a long time, I felt still, not vindicated, not angry, just aligned. Back in the dining room, time had fractured. The wine had stopped flowing. The food sat untouched. Vanessa was still clutching the Forbes magazine like a life raft, rereading the headline as if it might change the second time. Dad stared at the spilled wine, his phone forgotten beside him. His banking app still open, blinking numbers they didn't understand. My name next to a ticker. Nova, 5.3%. After hours surge. Then came the knock, 3 sharp taps. James opened the door and stepped aside with a bow. "Mrs. Carter, to see you," he said. A woman entered, sharply dressed in a slate-gray suit. Tablet in hand, posture so straight, it made everyone else seem crumpled by comparison. "Good evening," she said smoothly. "My name is Renee Carter. I serve as Chief Operating Officer for NovaTech Industries. Miss Wren asked me to stop by." Mom stood halfway, unsure whether to greet or defend. You work for Emily?" "I work with her," Renee said. "She's in her board meeting." "But she wanted you to have some clarity." She placed a sleek black folder on the table. "This," she said, "is the full breakdown of NovaTech's current portfolio. Market holdings, intellectual property, subsidiary companies, real estate assets, philanthropic endeavors, and the Wren Family Trust." Vanessa snatched the folder and flipped it open. Charts, contracts, maps, legal filings, stock ownership disclosures, property deeds. She set up a trust?" Dad finally spoke. "Yes, Miss Wren believes in legacy." Renee turned to him. "She structured the Wren Family Trust with an initial endowment of $100 million. Mom gasped. "But," Renee added calmly, "access comes with conditions." Vanessa blinked. Conditions? Each family member must demonstrate independent achievement, ethical business practices, and a commitment to innovation. No buy-ins, no shortcuts. You earn your place. Dad's jaw clenched. "From our daughter?" "From your CEO," Renee replied. Mom's voice cracked. "But she was just working out of a garage." "That garage," James interjected from the corner, "was a secure development facility. The entire building was owned by Miss Wren. I've been on her private staff for 3 years. This position here was part of her market research operation." "You knew?" Vanessa said, spinning toward him. James gave a single dignified nod. "Miss Wren prefers discretion." But she never lied. The dining room had gone dimmer somehow, smaller. Like the house itself realized its power had shifted. Dad's phone rang. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again his broker, CNBC, colleagues, friends. all wanting confirmation of what they'd just seen online. Meanwhile, Renee continued without pause. Miss Wren is the sole founder and majority shareholder of NovaTech Industries. The company controls 16 subsidiary ventures across biotech, cloud security, predictive analytics, and artificial intelligence. That includes several commercial properties in this city. She turned to Vanessa, her voice precise. One of which is the building your husband's law firm rents from. Vanessa sat back like she'd been hit. That's not possible. It is. The purchase was finalized yesterday. The firm's lease will remain, unless performance declines. She turned to Mom next. Miss Wren has reviewed your charity work. There is promise. The trust will match all future fundraising, dollar for dollar, assuming a proper business plan is submitted. And finally, she looked at Dad. Miss Wren is considering a partnership with your firm for her international expansion. Should your team wish to compete for the contract, the RFP goes out Monday. Equal opportunity. Dad swallowed hard, throat tight. This is insane, Vanessa muttered. No, Renee said, her expression neutral but firm. This is merit. The thing you all assumed Emily didn't understand. She placed a final envelope on the table. Inside, you'll find documentation of her role in acquiring 3 rival tech firms, including Techor, whose buyout was completed the night your family suggested she apply for an entry-level assistant job. She stepped back. And one last note, she added, eyes sweeping the table. Miss Wren asked me to remind you, family obligations go both ways. She turned, heels clicking, leaving behind nothing but the thick silence of realization. 1 week later, the Wren family stood in the private elevator of Thompson Tower, watching floor numbers light up like judgment. Vanessa kept adjusting the neckline of her dress, clearly chosen to impress but already wrinkled from nervous fingers. Mom clutched a handbag that probably cost more than a semester of my college tuition, yet she looked like a schoolgirl about to meet the principal. Dad kept straightening his tie, even though it was already perfect, or maybe because it wasn't doing anything to stop the sweat beading near his collar. None of them spoke, not until the screen above flashed. Level 63, Executive Suites. The elevator doors opened directly into a sun-drenched reception area with floor-to-ceiling glass. The view was impossible. The entire city stretched below, its tallest buildings reduced to footnotes. Modern art lined the walls, subtle, expensive, powerful. A young receptionist greeted them without rising. Miss Wren will be with you shortly, she said. She's just concluding a call with the Tokyo Exchange. Vanessa blinked. The Tokyo dash. Yes, ma'am. They took a few steps in, hesitant. The space was quiet but alive, the kind of silence money buys. Air purifiers hissed softly in the background. Lighting shifted automatically to flatter the guests without their knowing. Dad walked to the windows, staring down. She owns half these buildings, he said, not quite believing it. Closer to 60% now. They turned. I stood in the doorway of my private office, fitted suit, calm posture, every inch the role they said I could never play. The Morrison Group accepted our offer this morning, I added. We close Friday. Vanessa actually took a step back. I nodded toward the conference room. Come in, dinner's being served. They followed, stiff and silent, into a room that made our childhood dining table look like a picnic bench. A table carved from rare wood gleamed beneath architectural lighting. The place settings, china, crystal, silver, were so flawlessly arranged, even Mom had nothing to critique. I took my seat at the head of the table. Dad hesitated for half a second before sitting at my right. Vanessa to the left, Mom across from me. I looked around at the family who had once whispered about me behind closed doors, now sitting at mine. "Let's talk," I said, unfolding my napkins slowly, "about the family trust and what opportunity looks like when it's earned." The clink of silverware echoed through the room as servers placed the first course, a saffron risotto with shaved truffle, before each guest. The scent drifted upward, warm and unfamiliar, in a setting this cold. No one touched their plate. I waited a beat, then leaned forward, folding my hands lightly. "As you've seen," I began, "the Wren Family Trust is now live. Its initial valuation is just over $100 million. Dad blinked. Mom's hand twitched near her wine glass. Vanessa just stared. The trust is structured around 3 pillars: initiative, ethics, and innovation. Each family member has the opportunity to access funds based on demonstrated performance and contribution, not bloodline. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it again. Dad tried instead. "Emily, I appreciate what you've built, but this feels excessive. It's not how families do things." "Maybe not in this family," I said gently, "but it's exactly how mine will." I turned to Mom first. "Your volunteer work at the Literacy Foundation has potential. I'm matching your next round of fundraising, dollar for dollar. But I'll need a proper business plan, staffing, budget projections, measurable outcomes. I've assigned one of my strategists to guide you through the proposal process." Her jaw tensed, but she nodded, slowly. "Okay." I turned to Dad. "NovaTech is expanding into international legal jurisdictions. We're creating a dedicated compliance division. I've invited your firm to bid on the contract. Standard protocol applies, no back channels, no name leverage." He exhaled, the faintest sound of respect in it. "Understood." Then came Vanessa. She met my eyes, defiant, fragile. "You said we're hiring," she said, forcing a dry laugh. "Was that a joke?" "Not at all," I replied. "Your degree in marketing is relevant. We're opening a new consumer strategy division. Entry-level applicants begin next quarter. You're welcome to apply." "Entry-level?" she said, blinking. "Of course. Promotions are based on merit, and performance reviews are quarterly, like any other employee." She swallowed hard. "You think I can't do it?" she asked, voice breaking just slightly. "I think," I said calmly, "that if you can, then this is your chance to prove it. To everyone, including yourself." Vanessa looked down at her plate, cheeks flushed. But for once she didn't lash out. She nodded. The servers returned to refresh the wine. No one objected this time. I leaned back slightly, watching them sit in the stillness they once demanded from me. Then I pressed a small remote. Screens slid silently down from the walls, displaying live financial charts. "The trust," I continued, "is a tool, not a gift. It rewards vision, creativity, discipline. It offers capital, but demands accountability." Dad rubbed his temples. "We were wrong about you," he muttered. "We underestimated you." "No," I said softly. "You erased me. You rewrote the version of me that made you comfortable, then refused to see past it. I wasn't angry, not anymore. This was just acknowledgement. Everything you dismissed, the garage, the solitude, the silence, was design. While you worried about appearances, I was building systems. While you measured success by who married whom, I was closing acquisitions behind shell companies. You taught me something valuable. Mom looked up, hopeful. What's that? That invisibility is powerful. Until you decide to be seen. Silence fell again, this time heavier. I stood, walking slowly to the massive windows overlooking the skyline. That garage you mocked? I said, not turning around. It's now a tech incubator. I fund early-stage innovators whose families don't believe in them. I give them what I never had. I turned back, and for a moment, no one could meet my gaze. You raised me to obey, I said. I chose to lead. The room stayed quiet as the final course was cleared. Tomorrow, I added, NovaTech launches Phase 3, a proprietary AI platform that will reset the industry standard. Global implementation begins in 48 hours. Market forecasts are aggressive. Dad nodded slowly. I saw the projections. I'm sure you did. Then I returned to my seat. From here on out, I said, folding my napkin neatly beside my plate. This family functions under transparency, strategy, and earned trust. Emotional loyalty is optional. Operational loyalty is required. Mom's eyes welled slightly. Emily, honey. No, I said, more gently than they deserved. Not honey, not tonight. I checked my watch. Board meeting in 20, I said, rising again. Sarah will provide the final trust paperwork. They all stood as I did, out of habit, out of conditioning. But not out of power. Not anymore. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Sarah Carter waited, a slim folder in her hands, her expression as composed as ever. Miss Wren asked me to provide final documentation, she said, handing it to Mom. These outline the terms of the trust, eligibility schedules, and upcoming project opportunities. Everything must be earned. But the opportunity is real. Mom held the folder like it might dissolve in her hands. We really didn't know her, she whispered. No, Sarah said without cruelty. You didn't look. She gestured toward the open elevator. Your car is waiting. But Miss Wren has asked me to remind you. Family dinner next month will be held here, at the penthouse. Vanessa looked up. She's hosting it again. She's hosting the governor and several international partners. She expects punctuality. They stepped inside the elevator, changed somehow, smaller, humbled. Dad adjusted his tie one more time, but his hands weren't steady anymore. Mom's fingers gripped the folder like a second chance. Vanessa didn't say a word. The doors closed slowly. One last glimpse. I stood at the far end of the hall, silhouetted by the glass, city lights stretching behind me like a kingdom. A phone to my ear, calm, fluent Japanese, flowing from my lips as I closed the Tokyo deal without hesitation. This was my world now, one I had built in silence, brick by brick, bit by bit. No validation needed, no applause expected. The elevator descended, carrying the family I once thought I needed, and the legacy they never thought I'd define. Sarah turned toward me, tablet in hand. Phase 3 is greenlit, she said. I nodded once. Good. The screens across the office lit up, stock tickers climbing, headlines changing, markets shifting under our weight. I glanced once at the elevator monitor. Level 20, 10, ground, gone. And then I turned back to the windows, the sky, the future. It was quiet up here, but it wasn't lonely, not anymore. The view from the top, I decided, was worth every second. Of being underestimated. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, told to be realistic, remember this. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't just a story, it's a warning.